Update 220. Texas Heat campaign is around the corner, and they buffed the SMGs. Thanks for watching, I guess. I don't even know where to start, so let me start with the outfits and the future content, I guess. New outfit DLC is here, and you have an option to buy the future content with a bundle. I won't be buying the new DLCs from now on though. I have been supporting this game for years. I bought this game several times, gifted DLCs to others, and the current quality does not justify my support. I am a consumer who talks with his wallet. Payday 2 was an exception for the longest time, but not anymore. Since they are giving people the option to buy DLC packs as a bundle, they also teased new stuff that will come later. A new LMG, a new sniper rifle, which is Scout, a new grenade launcher, and a new grenade type is coming. Some speculate that new grenade is going to be a tear gas, and I hope that's the case because I unironically said that I would love to see a tear gas grenade on my recent podcast with Carrot. Aside from the promotional poster and the database entries for the new gun sounds, there isn't any information. However, I can totally see Scott being a better version of range hitter because Overkill just really likes to do this with their DLCs.
Buy it now.
They fixed 3 weapon bugs that I was going to cover in my next episode of Bug Showcase, which is fine by me. They also made a Reddit AMA, which is one of the reasons I delayed this video. So, here's a brief summary of questions that got answers. Damage range multipliers are here to stay. They may reintroduce hostage rescue teams and fix some unused units. Game can be cleaned up from their current bloated state and upgraded to 64-bit, but this is too much work for the dev team. Payday 3 isn't going to be Epic exclusive, probably. Balance changes are based on the telemetry data, which was obvious for me to the point that I have actually written down how Overkill is likely handling the balance on the balance section of the video before this was confirmed on the AMA. I was 99% sure, but the confirmation just enhances my video's credibility, which is nice. Console Payday 2 will be forever dead. Skill balances and additions are likely not gonna happen. Infamy system additions are being worked on, but there will be no more new rewards. DLC perk decks are not going to be balanced. Times between the DLCs are aiming to improve the quality. Exclusive sets are not meant to make the gun functionally good, but rather to make it look good. No NFT or sperm bank heist. Tracksuit may be utilized for something, but they're not quite sure. And yeah, I also got a dancing duck reward from Elmir.
Why isn't it possible? It's just not. Why not, you stupid bastard?
Well, on to the balance changes. Well, I say balance changes, but these are just buffs to the 2 of the best weapon classes in the game, SMGs and Akimbo SMGs. Well, you heard me right. 2 of the best weapon classes. SMGs are just pocket assault rifles that can be slotted into any build. Are you making a sniper build? Bring an SMG for dozers as well as light CQC. Are you bringing an LMG build? Bring an SMG for the times you can find time to reload. Are you bringing an AR SMG combo for endless stream of bullets? Well, if you're a death sentence player, you already know how stuff works, and it is likely that you are just as confused about some of the changes they made for some secondary SMGs. Not every buff was unneeded, but some of them are. Well, most of them. As for Akimbo SMG buffs, I don't even know what to say about it. But why did Overkill buff them again? Well, I think I know why. The way Overkill is handling balance changes is resting on 3 factors. They consider DLC-less players whose options are so limited compared to the players with the money in their pocket. They consider making the DLC options ever so slightly better to boost the sales of their DLCs for business reasons.
Buy it now.
and they consider weapons used by the player base as a whole. Considering the needs of DLC-less players is a nice gesture, and I have no problems with this type of handling balance, especially since the game has like fuck ton of DLCs. There is a reason why some of the best weapons and perk decks are free from extra charge. The Akimbo Goliath, Akimbo Grims, Platypus, Parabellum, Deagle, Garand, Mark 10, Compact 5, Judge, Claire, Compact 40mm, 5.7, KSP 58 are all very powerful options that doesn't require any DLC to get maximum effectiveness out of them. As for perk decks, Armorer, Hacker, Stoic, Leech are all top tier options on the highest difficulties. They are also completely free of extra charge. I have no problems with this way of handling balance. The second way they handle balance is to make DLC options ever so slightly better. Let's take a look into KSP 58 and KSP. KSP 58 is a fine gun, but KSP has less recoil, higher stability, and reloads faster to boot. So if you own KSP, you have no real reason to use KSP 58. There are more examples of this, but I don't want to bog down the video, I think you get my point. Balancing the weapons around how much usage they get is the problematic part, and I will be explaining why. Payday 2 is an inherently casual game, even on the highest difficulty. The weapons players most often use doesn't usually come from how good the weapon actually is, rather how nice the weapon feels for that particular player. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Let's compare Izma to Akimbo Goliaths. Izma is a much less powerful option compared to Goliaths. Goliaths have double the DPS of the Izma, has better crowd control with more pellets, and reloads faster when fully emptied than mag. Less concealment is not even relevant considering the upside of the weapon. But I personally use Izma more. Why do I do that? Because of aesthetics. Izma has punchier sounds for firing, reloading, the recoil of the gun when firing, the small nudge of the reload animation that emphasizes the weight of the gun. It is infinitely more satisfying than using the better option. And I know this is the case because I still see Izma getting used more than Goliath, so I know most people share the same feelings that I do. Yeah, sure, Goliaths are just better, and not even by a small margin. But it has no recoil conveyed in both the animations and the functions, and the gun just sounds weak. Why am I bringing shotguns into an SMG buff patch? Well, the same thing happens here as well. Just because people don't use a particular gun doesn't make the gun or the gun class itself bad. This is more relevant when it comes to Akimbo SMGs. Akimbo SMGs were arguably overpowered before, but they didn't get much use. So Overkill buffed them by giving them 50% more ammo. They started to get more use because people that were not aware about the power of the class become curious. But after some time, people stop using them again in favor of the guns that they actually like to use. There are also people that doesn't touch Akimbo SMGs because they are overpowered as hell, so gauging the player base's gun use is just not ideal when it comes to Payday 2. You have the Ask the Death Sentence community and the veterans of the game for the proper feedback when it comes to balancing, and not just look into some numbers that comes from your telemetry system. This approach causes more problems than it fixes, such as shotgun nerfs. Shotguns never really overpowered. They were just so satisfying to use, and people enjoyed using them to a religious degree. The only truly overpowered shotgun was the Goliaths, and the gun's balancing reasons fits the Overkill's way of handling balance around DLC-less players, so I don't see a reason to complain about it. There are a few use cases for SMGs, and I will be going through nearly all of them. One of them is the oh shit button. You take it out when your primary can't kill something. This is often relevant for sniper builds, which are vulnerable to dozers, LMG builds which have long reloads, low damage AR builds such as Valkyria build I shared on the update 210 video. Another use case for the SMG is to build ammo for your primary, mainly on body expertise setups. This goes for both AR builds and Akimbo SMG builds. Akimbo SMG builds are just about one of the laziest, one of the most powerful build types you can use for this purpose. Many triple SMG builds are infinitely sustainable with a secondary SMG backing them up. This technique of switching weapons around to build your ammo resource backup is called weapon juggling. While secondary SMGs are useful for general purpose combat and Akimbos are just ridiculous, not every SMG was broken beyond belief, so Overkill decided to do just that. Most popular choices were Mark 10, Micro Uzi, Krinko, and CR805B for the secondary slot, and Akimbo Mark 10, Kobus, Krinkovs, and CR805B for the primary slot. None of the weapons I just mentioned got any buffs, which is good. But others did, and they're a mixed bag. That being said, not every change that comes from this patch was horrible. I will be going through every buff that has been given and gave my proper feedback on them. This patch was way more messy than update 210 patch, cause they didn't just buff all the classes to certain margins. They went through specific SMGs that no one used for good reasons. CMP was a low damage SMG that didn't have a good concealment rating. Low damage SMGs are often ignored by the player base because they have bad accuracy, long reloads, low damage outputs. Only low damage SMGs that are in use provide concealment as a benefit, which CMP just didn't do. So Overkill fix was to, say it with me everyone, buff the damage. Without cutting down the ammo, of course. Both single and Akimbo variant have its damage up from 44 to 55. The single secondary version is still getting beaten out by Compact 5, which offers way more concealment and higher damage. But the Akimbo version got a more significant buff that makes it much more appealing. Akimbo version's reload has been cut by an entire second. It actually reloads so fast that it rivals Speedball Max. It is still lacking in the concealment department, but Compact 5 is good for that anyways, so it is fine as is. This buff makes CMP compete with the Mark 10s with Speedball Mag. Mark 10 has higher accuracy, but less ammo, on top of requiring a Speedball Mag, which is locked away on a DLC for maximum effectiveness. CMP is just a good and competitive option for non-DLC players, so the build that I tested them with also doesn't require any DLCs in order to function well. It is a stoic build, so if you want your DSOD mask, this should work just fine. I have no problems with this change. Akimbo CMPs are just a nice gesture for those without DLCs. Swedish K is a weird and a niche gun. The gun only had one use, and one use only. 32 concealment, high damage SMG. I am not saying this is a bad thing. Payday 2 has too many guns, and making every gun fill the same purpose would be just bad balancing. However, the buffs this gun is given doesn't mean much. Plus 8 stability has been added to 2 of its weapon mods, Swedish barrel and the extended magazine. So the gun has been giving a buff that doesn't match with its niche use case, that being the concealment. So it ends up looking pretty pointless for a level 100 player. However, this gun is unlocked at level 0, so if you're doing like an infamy grind, this buff may be beneficial for you. Just maybe. Overall, I am indifferent about this change. For build, you can check out the Carrot's hacker build video. I made the last build and it uses Swedish K as a secondary dozer killer. Just swap the medium suppressor for MatthewCAbel suppressor, since MatthewCAbel is a better attachment that wasn't available at the time. Only reason I'm bringing this up, the level 0 fact, is because if I just don't, someone will point it out. This was just a boring buff to cover for me and nothing can change that. This gun was just useless, both the players with DLC and non-DLC. It got beaten up by every single SMG on its damage tier. Overkill solution was once again, say it with me everyone, buff the damage. The long barrel attachment has been giving a plus 10 damage and 4 more accuracy. While the buff is boring and uninspiring since damage isn't the only stat in the game, Overkill, wink wink, it does the job just fine, I guess. In fact, I find the damage and the accuracy buff more than substantial since it turns a Typewriter into a non-DLC AK Gen alternative. In fact, it is better in some cases. AK Gen has a better reload, sure, but Typewriter has a bigger magazine. In fact, this small buff is really relevant for no DLC platypus builds. You can now more reliably 1-mag regular dozers without crits or berserker. Anyways, this time I wanted to cosplay as a gangster, so the build is reflective of that very desire. The accuracy loss from not using silencers is made up by the stable shot and rifleman ace skills. The build is quite straightforward. Kill stuff, use ammo bags. You have a joker for extra health and even a faster health regen, and the panic provided by muscle can be beneficial. The other build is a Caleb cosplay because goddammit I couldn't resist it. Toss that dynamite, shoot fast, and eat your enemy's heart to regen your health. Overall, I like this change simply because it gave me a reason to make a cosplay build after all this time. SpecOps, Jacket's piece, and Kross Vertex are a special breed of SMGs that has a focus on accuracy at the cost of concealment. They are really accurate even without silencer skills to back them up, but the Kross Vertex's accuracy was buffed even further, which made the SpecOps and Jacket's piece kinda obsolete in terms of balancing. Overkill solutions was, once again, say it with me everyone, buff the damage. Now SpecOps deals the AK Gen damage at the cost of a single mag for both single and Akimbo versions. AK Gen is more concealable than SpecOps, but SpecOps is just reloads faster, so take that as you will, I guess. I have a muscle build that was using SpecOps as a secondary and that build is like 2% better, I guess. This change was also boring, but it solves the issue of Vertex outclassing SpecOps for non-concealed accurate 60 damage SMG niche, I guess. Still, the gun was fine and fun to use, while the buff theoretically fixes the Vertex being a better gun problem. I didn't notice any difference when playing. This is likely the best SMG to use for majority of the builds. Damage, accuracy, stability, concealment, mag size, total ammo and ammo pickup rate are all off the charts when combined. Yes, they buffed the damage, but they also cut down the total ammo around 40% for both single and Akimbo versions. This is no longer a low damage, low rate of fire gun anymore. I always wanted to like this gun ever since 2015 changes, which made it a low damage piece of shit. Now the changes made during 2015 is sorta reverted. Uzi is a high damage, high ammo sustain SMG that competes with Tatonka. For the secondary slot at least. Akimbo primary can compete with other high damage options such as CR85Bs or Tatonkas. But the secondary is just grossly overpowered. It is essentially a pocket battle rifle now. Ammo pickup rate on this is also cracked, picking up an average of 7 ammo per box. Still, now I have a high damage secondary SMG that looks like an actual sidearm, which I'm happy about it. I hated carrying Tatonka and CR around since they are just too big for my build taste. I like it, but my like comes from my own biases since I wanted to use this gun for such a long time. Don't get me wrong, gun is definitely overtuned, and some ammo pickup nerf would be welcome, but this is Overkill we are talking about. So this gun is likely gonna stay the same. Dear Overkill, please cut down the pickup rate of the gun, or don't, cause let's face it, who the fuck am I really? Para was an inferior Mark 10. It was still good to the point that I asked a modder for custom animations for it, which that modder granted my wish, and Restrong used on his White House solo a few months ago. But Overkill decided that this gun shouldn't be an inferior Mark 10. Their solution was, say it with me everyone, buff the damage. The build is the same as the Uzi, just swap the guns around. You can just guess what they did. Say it with me, everyone. Yes, they buffed the damage, but only for the Ghetto Blaster barrel for some reason. It is still outclassed by Compact 5 though, so yeah, take that as you will. Reload time is cut by a single second for the Akimbo version, but it is still inferior to CMP if you have no DLC. They buffed its mods to encourage more diversity when modding the gun. It is still boring as hell though, just use these two instead. Plus 4 damage is given to civilian barrel, which is, quite frankly, irrelevant since this is a 100 damage SMG. They are also giving the civilian barrel and the short magazine concealment buffs. This gun is still useless though, aside from its style, just use these instead. I already mentioned Jackal's piece on the SpecOps section. Jackal's piece was also got behind of the curve compared to Vertex, but the buffs made to this gun isn't the same level as other two choices. Both versions of the Jackal's piece has been giving a reload buff. However, this doesn't solve the issue of the gun. It is still outclassed by Vertex and SpecOps. In order to give it a more niche use case, I suggest giving it a longer range to take fully advantage of the gun's accuracy, and a small damage ramp up close, and revert the reload speed buff altogether as a means of compensation. Akimbo version is somewhat competitive if you have DLC for the weapons, that is, since the plus 20 stability from this mod is pretty much essential. But if you have the DLC already, you can just use Mark 10 with speed pool max. faster reload, and faster equip time. This is another non-DLC alternative SMG now. While this is not something groundbreaking by any means, it is just something I don't really care about it, since if I really need to use Akimbos, I tend to prefer the ones with speedful mags. But if you're lacking that option, this can work just fine. I think Akimbo Jackal piece is still a tad bit better than Akimbo Vertex. And it is definitely not Mark 10 with speedballs. The equip timer decrease was an interesting buff, even though its effect is, let's be honest, quite minimal. Say it with me, everyone. Yep, they buffed the damage. They buffed the damage again. This time instead of plus extra 10 damage from the straight mag, it is 15 now. This is likely the best non-DLC SMG now. You can get pretty nutty stats overall, and the ammo for it is basically infinite. Signature is giving a damage buff to match Compact 5, and a lower recoil. Here's the thing though, Compact 5 is still a better option, even though its reload is a tad bit slower. So you still have no real reason to use this gun over others. Okay, I have a problem with this one. They buffed the reload speed for both versions. Single Tatonka was already the best high damage SMG with its good ammo sustain, huge mag, and a high concealment. And I am being pretty genuine here. Since the gun didn't get much use for no real reason actually. Seriously, why no one uses this gun? I use it, it is actually my go-to high damage SMG. But I rarely see people use it. Yeah, sure, Krinko and CRA the 5P has a smidge bit higher DPS for dozers, but Tatonka wasn't exactly lagging behind either. It had high total ammo for its class, high pickup rate for its class, and it was still decently accurate with a gargantuan magazine to boot. You can slot this gun into basically any build, and it will perform flawlessly. As a human being that uses a secondary version a lot, I can confidently say that this reload speed increase is largely unnecessary. At least for the secondary version. Sure, buff the Akimbo version's reload speed, cause why not? CRA the 5 exists as an Akimbo and nothing can top that. Not like you should try to top that. I'm gonna move on. Both versions of the header has been giving more stability to match Mark 10. That is it. This is the change. I wanna leave now. Only good changes that comes from these meta changes are Akimbo CMPs, Typewriter, Compact 5, and just because I'm biased, I will throw in Uzi as well. Uzi and Tatonka is overtuned and should be dialed back a bit. You can remove rest of these changes and the game will still be the same. I don't think Overkill even understands the balance problem in this game. Guns are largely fine. What it needs to be fixed is the perk tech balance. Let me tell you, players are still not gonna use every gun that is buffed cause we just have too many guns in this game. Bloat is too much and balancing them in a way that it gives them actual use is impossible because we have a gun for nearly every niche. Players just don't know all of them, and to be fair, neither Overkill do. I wanna be honest with you. I didn't want to make this video. I barely get any views or recognition compared to the effort I put into these videos. A single edited video I make takes me about 2 or 3 weeks of planning, scripting, and editing, and sometimes even more. The only reason I even bothered to crunch this video is because I know few people that would like to see my take on the changes, and that's all that really matters. For the past 7 years, This game seemed nothing but buffs, and I don't feel excited for anything in the slightest. In fact, no one really does. I spent some time looking into discussions around Discord servers about the update, and everyone just collectively stopped discussing the changes after just a few hours, because most of them are pretty inconsequential. Overkill finally managed to drain the excitement from the dedicated player base, and I don't blame them. This game is alive by the consequences. Player base and no real alternative co-op game similar to Payday 2, and the developers couldn't move away from it, even though they tried and failed.